Burlington. And the second item is short-term Marmor Road complete street adjustments. This comes out of your October 15th meeting where you directed us to look at a couple of items short-term and then come back with more with recommendations for the entire corridor next spring. So with that, I'll go ahead and call on Community Development Director Sarah Copeland to present the Bicycle Master Plan Draft Network Map item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our consultant team is working on drafting the actual document for our Bicycle Master Plan based on the community feedback that they've been collecting over the past 9-ish months and the data that they've analyzed for North Kansas City. On September 7th and September 20th, we presented the state of the plan to the community in a series of 2 meetings. And part of that was the draft network map to gather feedback from the community on what they thought of the draft network, what priorities that they might have for implementation of that long term, because this is a 20-year guide for future investments. And tonight we're asking you basically to help settle a question that is outstanding about that draft network map. I want to note at the beginning that this is just part of the Bicycle Master Plan. It's an important part, but just part. Other contents of the plan will include goals for the eventual facilities provided here in the city, an analysis of our roadways, benchmarks for us to track and measure our progress towards achieving our goals, and a guide for future projects. So this is just one part of the overall master plan for North Kansas City. Our goal in putting together the draft network map was to identify routes through North Kansas City and the type of facility that would be included on these streets to complete a network that has level of traffic stress 1. So level of traffic stress is based on the type of street, the prevailing speeds of the street, and traffic volumes. Level of traffic stress 1 routes are comfortable and safe for riders of all ages and all abilities. So that's why you will see on the network map that we have some routes that are labeled as conventional bike lanes, some that are labeled as protected bike lanes, some of which we've identified shared lane markings, which we already have on a number of our streets. That's based on prevailing speeds and traffic volumes. Different streets need different facilities to reach level of traffic stress 1. So one of our goals overall in putting together the network throughout the city was to create east-west connections. We have plans for a future facility, a 2-way cycle track on Burlington. We have Diamond Parkway already constructed. We want to be able to connect people east and west across North Kansas City, and particularly to get people across the interstate. There are really, even if you're in a car, only 3 ways to cross Interstate 35 in North Kansas City. So that's been one of the focuses of putting this together. Early in the process, there was a lot of interest from people to use 16th Avenue as an east-west connection. We, as part of this process, did updated traffic counts throughout the city. And one of the things we found in doing those counts was that traffic is very high on 16th Avenue, and it's even higher than the traffic counts we had available from MoDOT. And particularly truck traffic is very heavy. And so for our planning team, that kind of eliminated 16th Avenue as being a great east-west connection. So we then looked at using 18th Avenue or 14th Avenue for those connections. There's a lot of interest in 18th Avenue as a way to connect to downtown, but if you're going from, say, Diamond Parkway to downtown Kansas City, Missouri, or to the River Market, you're going to want to go south instead of going north to then go south. So that's why we also looked at 14th Avenue. In putting all of this together, we did get a lot of feedback from residents that 14th Avenue seems like a great connection, particularly because it connects to the Rabbit Hole, which is under construction right now. When talking to the business community, we received a lot of concern that bicycle facilities on 14th Avenue would create problems for them. And so that's why, we really didn't receive any consensus on which direction to head in terms of 14th Avenue. And that's why we're coming to you about this tonight, because we just need to know your direction in order to complete work on the master plan. So we really see 4 options. One is to maintain 14th Avenue in the draft network plan with the conventional bike lanes, which is what is shown in the current draft and in the map that's before you tonight. We could maintain 14th Avenue in our draft network map, but add specific requirements that any future improvements must accommodate trucks, including turning movements, loading zones, and lane widths. This is a high-level master plan that does not get into the specific engineering detail for each route and facility. That would be something that would happen at a future date when we were working on each of the projects on these individual streets. A third option might be to maintain 14th Avenue in the draft network map with shared lane markings, or the sharrows that we have on a lot of streets in our city only, or we could remove 14th Avenue from the draft network map altogether. I will point out that we do not think that this is a high priority for the community, so any improvements on 14th Avenue are likely to be at some future point, I would say more than 5 years from now. But this is a 20-year plan. We are looking long-term at future improvements to the city over many years. And so we're looking to you for some direction on what you would prefer for this particular part of the plan. Jay Aber, who is with WSP and is part of the planning team for the Bicycle Master Plan, is also here tonight, and he would be happy to answer any specific engineering questions you might have, and we look forward to your direction.
If we would take the bike plan down to 14th, you're talking about taking it down the MoDOT right-of-way on the east side of the freeway. Is that?
No, that would be a project that would require some additional engineering work. It's possible that it could be in the MoDOT right-of-way, or by acquiring additional right-of-way from the adjacent property owner there on the east side of the interstate. It could go either way, and that's actually a project that's in this year's budget to do further engineering and community engagement around how to make that connection. We think that connection is valuable regardless of what you decide to do with 14th Avenue tonight.
I think we need to go 18th Street, and there's a couple of reasons why. I spent some time on 14th Street today, driving down over the weekend. It's in not that great a shape to begin with. It's still in the industrial area. The problem, I have a number of problems. One, 18th Street makes a lot of sense. It'd be a lot less expensive. There's already sharrows there. Obviously, they need to be painted because they're very faded. People are already familiar with that route. It'd be less expensive. I also think that in driving down the various options, that it makes way more sense to me as a community to connect on 18th Street, which will empty right into where we have lots and lots of bars and restaurants and other entertainment venues. 14th Street empties into nothing at this point in time. There's very little down there that would be attractive. I'm less concerned about whether or not they go south to the River Market or downtown. That's not North Kansas City. I am more concerned that, number one, it just makes no sense to me to put on 14th or 16th Street where there are clearly trucks and bikes. 18th Street is already marked, would be way cheaper to do overall, and would make much more sense emptying into our business district.
The draft network map does show 18th Avenue as including both shared lane markings in some portions and a conventional bike lane in the heart of downtown.
Well, my opinion is we need to go 18th Street. I'm completely opposed to 14th or 16th for the
So
reasons
if I
stated.
understand, just to make sure I understand, with regard to 14th,
Right.
you would do nothing then? Is that
I
leave
just
it
don't think
completely
it's an
alone?
option.
Leave it completely alone?
Yeah, as
Okay.
far as bike
Just wanted to
paths
make sure
go.
I understood, yeah.
Yeah,
we're-
I don't
yeah.
think that's a bike path. I
Okay.
don't think 14th or 16th
Yeah.
should be a bike path.
Our main goal tonight is to get direction on 14th.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely, I
helpful.
don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that what you're saying, out of the four things, on 14th Avenue, just remove it.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I don't think so. Option 3.
Couple questions. One, and maybe I didn't get all this, but has the recommendation more been to 14th Avenue as opposed to 18th Avenue? What were the deterrents? The connector over to Diamond Parkway, but you can still go to Diamond Parkway another way. Yeah, for that short little, I mean, and that's just, I mean, I don't know why I'm talking to you. I'm really talking to you. So what
Draft
is the?
network map shows both of those routes.
Right, so both of those are options.
Yes.
So, I mean, I see the jog around for 18th Avenue to Diamond Parkway, but, I mean, it's just a short amount of space that people would need to get over to Diamond Parkway, right? I just want to understand, because I guess I don't understand why 18th is not a good option. And my second question is the business community in support of 18th Avenue? Is it sounds like they're not in support of 14th Avenue.
So your first question, we're showing both of those routes.
Yeah, but the recommendation is 14th, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are you saying?
We're not recommending one street over the
Oh,
other.
you're not
The
saying.
draft
you're
network
saying
map
simultaneously,
includes
those are both
both.
the options.
They would both be shown on the network map in the bicycle master plan.
I see.
Now, I agree, 18th Avenue is
You're not
probably
choosing
likely to
14th
happen
over
first,
18th.
before
Oh, okay.
14th Avenue.
Okay,
In
thank you
terms
for
of
that.
time for implementation. But this map is just showing an overall network that we would work on implementing over time. It's not choosing one
over the other. Okay, got it. And
Now,
and-
your question about
Yeah.
whether support for 18th Avenue, I don't know that we got a lot of comments on 18th Avenue really either way. A lot of people who I think felt that 18th Avenue was a good choice for exactly the reasons that Councilmember Pierce has mentioned. I know that for NT Realty, they have a concern about the eastern portion of 18th Avenue, like between Howell and Lynn, because they do have some industrial tenants located in that stretch of 18th Avenue. And so just concern about some truck traffic there. But they had indicated to staff that they were not concerned about the sharrows or the shared lane markings because those are existing and have not caused any problems to date. I do think that they have a concern about Lynn, again, for those same reasons, but we have no other way to connect 18th Avenue to Diamond Parkway. So I think that's generally the feedback we've gotten
Okay.
about 18th Avenue as a part of this network.
Okay, thank you for that.
A couple things. I drove the whole area Saturday. And 14th, it ends there at the interstate. I mean, we'd have to structure a whole, it doesn't even make sense to me, and that sounds like nobody else is for it either. And 16th, it's just too many trucks. And you can't just think about, like, take 16th as an example. Don't think of just the east and west. Those trucks are going to be coming up to that road, like from Iron, and got to make a turn. They're going to take up both lanes when they turn. There's no way for a semi-truck to turn off of, say, Iron onto 14th or 16th without crossing the center line, and it's just too dangerous. Now, 18th, I'm not for protected lanes anywhere on south of Armour Road.
That's not what we're showing for 18th
Good.
Avenue.
Now, I think the business community was not too concerned about the, whatever you call the one with the paint, those. But think about something. I asked my wife as we was driving up and down, I said, did you notice anything about these roads, even in the residential area, which is a really good path to take? There's not one sign that says no bicycles. If they want to ride down 14th Street like it is, have at it. I mean, nobody says you can't. But I agree with Rita, if anything, 18th, and I know it could be a problem there where the newer warehouses are. But as far as going down Lynn, it seemed like there's plenty of room there to, even we had to buy the right of way more, is to put it behind the curve to 16th and go in to the Diamond Parkway. I'm not against bicycles at all. I just say, though, if I want to go down to the rabbit hole when it opens on my bicycle, just jump on that bicycle and go.
So the route on 14th is marked in purple for a conventional bike lane. Is that the middle picture on the memo that we have, with the paint on the outside?
Yes, it is.
How would that function on the road? Would it be one on either side? Would it be two stacked next to each other on one side? What would that look like?
Yeah, what's been investigated to date right now is a bike lane on either side flowing with the traffic.
And what would the width of those lanes look like?
I think they were about 6 feet wide, 6 or
feet.
7 feet wide. There's a little bit of buffer between the cars and the parked cars and the bikes there, so that when people park and open their door, there's not a conflict with potentially hitting a cyclist riding down there.
And so what I hear you saying is parked cars would have room for their doors. When I went down to 14th, I observed some trucks parked on, like, right on the curb for unloading, loading operations. If a truck was parked on either side, would there still be room for two trucks to then pass each other going either direction with the width of the bike lanes?
So what's been done to date so far is really conceptual and planning, and what we've looked at is that it is likely feasible to do this, but there'd be a lot more engineering involved if the time came that this was designed, so specific areas for loading zones or specific issues like that. But based on the width of the road, there would certainly be enough room to park a truck on either side and have trucks drive side by side if that occurred at some time. It might be that in that area there's the trucks over tracking into the bike lane for a short distance. Similar on the turning movements, turning on and off of the street, there might be some over tracking onto the bike lane, but all that would be investigated in terms of exactly how big the trucks are, what the turning movements look like when that design came.
And would a truck be permitted for loading and unloading to park where there's a marked bike lane? They would have to park outside of that, correct?
You can do it multiple ways. You can have the bike lane sort of like where we have the bus stops on Armour Road. You could have the bike lane in that space go away for a short period where the cyclists would then ride on the road with cars, depending on the width that's available. But loading zones could certainly be incorporated into that design. But
Okay.
that'd kind of be a case-by-case basis.
So my concern is for the truck movements, and there's not a ton of overlap in the time that bikers are using the road versus when the trucks are using the roads. A lot of nights and weekends for riders. Trucks are busy during the day, and if our goal is to reach that level 1 comfort, I don't know that Sharrows get us there. But if we're going to not handicap the truck movements, I don't know that conventional bike lanes are the answer either. So my thought is, if we do use the Sharrows, is there an option to paint them put a circle around them with the green so they jump off the road and they'd actually be visible?
There are lots of different ways you can paint Sharrows.
Okay.
You can do them in a green box. We chose just regular white markings really for ease of installation when they were originally done. But yes, you can make them more colorful or more visible through various uses of green paint mostly.
And that's a permissible use of the road, because I know there's been pushback on colorful walkways. There's been some discussion about these different things, but that would be okay to paint in bright green? the
Yes,
Sharrows?
that's contained in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Okay, so my thing would be not to give a dedicated facility so that the trucks can continue to use the road, but to mark it as such where bikers know that it's okay to ride on, and then to work for that right-of-way along 14th at the end.
I agree.
You know, the thing about it is, people have been riding bicycles around this town for years, and they've shared the road. You know, now I don't know why. I've only heard of one bicycle accident in North Kansas City where somebody got killed, and that was down on Burlington. But I don't really see any point in, I don't have a problem with these Sharrow lanes or something like that, but I think we're wasting a lot of time and money on something that really is not that necessary.
I think maybe I'm hearing consensus, tell me if I'm wrong, to remove 14th Avenue from the fourth bullet on the memo, to remove it from the draft network map altogether. Is that
Yeah,
a
that's
fair
what I'm
statement of the
saying.
consensus? Is there anybody who wants to disagree with it? Okay, I'm seeing some so perhaps there needs to be some more discussion.
Yeah, is there an option, is there a sidewalk on 14th? I don't recall. There is there an option to widen the sidewalk and make it a shared use path for bikes and pedestrians? Or to just make it a shared use path without widening it? I don't know if that's a possibility. Maybe an engineer question.
I just don't think 14th Street is going to be used a whole lot by bikes or pedestrians. And it's going to cost a lot of money to put in a whole bunch of sharrows and things down there when we already have them on 18th Street. And we can just modify them. And I do agree they need to be more colorful or whatever. I have no opposition to that. But we have a perfectly good corridor that connects where we want to connect into an area where a lot of people invested a lot of money for entertainment, which we're all about, and 14th Street goes to nothing.
It goes to our only bike shop in town.
Well, that's fine. It goes to one business as opposed to several.
Well, I don't disagree on 18th Avenue, but what about the rabbit hole?
The rabbit hole can be, there's also sharrows on Iron Street. So you can go down Iron Street if those sharrows were made a little bit more visible.
So you're suggesting maybe a rerouting?
Maybe, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I just don't think it's worth the money, and I don't think that's the correct corridor, and I don't think it's going to be used that much. I don't think it's worth the money for the lack of use.
I mean, I kind of like, here, so I actually got to push the button. Okay. I kind of like Councilmember Smith's idea to continue to look at options there, actually, because we're working on a network here, a high-level network, and certainly regional connections are going to be important to this. So if you are coming to or from the River Market area, that makes logical sense right here to 14th. And then at the end, if we do this project we talked about, you connect right into Diamond Parkway. And right here, you're not, there's no conflict once you connect at the end here too. Whereas if you go up to 18th, you're still going to have the Lynn issue and kind of connecting and jogging through this area up here.
Through where the people
Through
are on the
18th Lynn,
highway.
where there's kind of that goofy section, you're crossing the tracks there. And there is a lot of truck traffic there turning on Lynn.
Not between the hours of which most people will be riding bikes.
Well, the goal is certainly encourage people to ride more often at all hours. And
Not at
certainly
6 in
level
the
one.
morning and
Well, I know we
when
do have some,
truckers go.
we do have some commuters already. I mean, I don't have the,
If I could just, to be clear about what staff's hope was for tonight's outcome, just in terms of getting direction, and it's stated in the memo. We need to try to move the bicycle master plan forward in some kind of way. We've had a number of public meetings, and there's, a steering committee that was formed. We've received grant money. And one way or another, we need to bring it forward to you eventually to the planning commission and then to you for a vote. The problem that what we were concerned about was that the controversy over this one issue might conceivably defeat the entire plan. And so we were hoping tonight, as opposed to let's talk about it, let's keep talking about it, with all due respect, was to get some kind of direction on this one isolated route, so that then we could bring the entire plan forward in some kind of way with the council consensus reflected. Now, if you can't get there, you can't get there, but that is what we were hoping for tonight, as opposed to let's keep looking at options. If you give us that direction, we're going to have a hard time bringing the master plan forward, I think. We eventually need to, we think, get this particular root question resolved. If it's not tonight, then sometime before we bring you the entire plan for your consideration.
Let's say turn it orange.
Is there, since we have meetings ongoing, if this discussion up here is dying down, is there any reason why we could not deviate and let some business people speak to this issue?
It's up to the mayor.
What do you think? We have some business people right here.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Richard?
So, Richard Lanning, NT Realty, I think everybody knows me. 14th Avenue, there are intermittent sidewalks along 14th Avenue. I don't know how you'd acquire additional right-of-way, and there's really not that much room to do that. Before I saw the actual plan that was produced on how they were going to do 14th Avenue, I was trying to keep an open mind. And then I saw that and talked to a lot of businesses in our projects, talked to other businesses along 14th Avenue that are here right now, and it just won't work. If you come down there right now, actually, during the day, between the hours of 8 and 5, you can see the amount of truck traffic and the amount of disruption it would cause for bikers down there. I don't think these folks have a problem with sharrows, but to paint bike lanes and spend money on engineering and try to do that, it's a total waste of time, a total waste of money, in my opinion. The sharrows are the only way to go on 14th Avenue.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually suggesting, is I like the Sharrows idea, and then also I like the idea of really emphasizing 18th Avenue and trying to build that up and encourage that usage for a lot of the businesses that are up there.
Well, I think you need to be very careful. The major truck route, if you're driving south on I-35 with a tractor trailer and you want to access North Kansas City in the Central Industrial District, you have to get off at Armour. And then you have to turn south on Lynn. So really to put those obstacles there makes no sense at all. And then we have multiple industrial buildings from Lynn and 18th all the way over to, Iron Street. I could see it from maybe Iron Street west.
Yeah.
But anything
Agreed.
east of Iron needs to be Sharrows again.
Yeah,
And-
agreed.
And Lynn Street really needs to be Sharrows. There's a lot of truck traffic right there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't bike there during the day. It's just you don't inhibit business from operating during the day. There's way too much industry down there to incorporate bike lanes, any kind of bike lanes other than Sharrows in the industrial district. I mean, you spent $750,000 here on Armour Road. I'll bet you spent $1.5 million in One North building that bike lane. So to spend any more money like this, to me, makes 0 sense. Anybody else would like to speak?
My name is Kevin Ospey. I'm the owner of Davis Paint Company at 14th, corner of 14th and Iron. I can get you, Jesse, whatever color paint you want. Bright green, bright yellow, we can make them fancy. My concern with the bike lanes there, and I don't know if anybody drives around at lunchtime. I'm the guy that's walking every day. So I'm walking up 14th Street. I know that's not sidewalk all the way. I am concerned with 54-foot rigs driving up and down 14th Street. We just spent $125,000 expanding my gate 6 feet, my entrance gate. We had to remove a transformer from KCP&L and relocate it 6 feet over to allow trucks to back into our facility without encroaching on our neighbors across the street significantly. This is not a new problem. This is a problem we've had for a long time, but these guys drive Motel 6s with 54-foot trailers, and you cannot make a left or a right. You put 7 feet of bike lane, you put 7 feet of parked cars, 7 feet of bike lane, and you leave 15 feet. Right now, if you look over there and watch a truck turn onto Iron from 14th Street, they're all the way over to Mid-America Contractors and almost hitting everybody on our side. So I have no problem with bikes. I have no problem with Sharrows. And like I said, Jess, I'd be happy to make you whatever color, fancy color you want. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I think Richard has a great suggestion. I'm fine with that on 14th Avenue with the Sharrows, and I think the rest of the bike plan, from what I'm hearing him say, is in agreement with what you're talking about, so.
So would this be our third bullet point on the page
Yeah.
3 of the memo? Maintain 14th Avenue in the draft network map with Sharrows.
Yes.
Right.
Turn it orange on the map.
Is there a consensus for that?
I think so.
That's gonna go nowhere. We're gonna have to build up to 14th.
That's what we're planning to do.
That's what
right.
they're saying.
That's what that blue path is.
Right, so in this year's budget, we do have, call it a study, of creating a path on the east side of I-3529 up to Diamond Parkway to get from 14th to 16th. That would be the connection that we're looking at.
So who owns that land now?
Nobody.
That would be MoDOT right-of-way.
Oh,
There would also be Sharrow connections on Iron and Howell, and then future connections on Swift and on Burlington, as shown in the network map. So
Velma, you're back there in the back. You got something you want to say? Yeah, come on up.
I'm Cowden. I'm with the Rabbit Hole. So I just, first of all, thank you for all your support to date. I do want to mention a couple things, and you just brought it up, which is that connecting 14th Ave to, or making an attempt to connect as a pedestrian or bikeway to the development up in Armour, where there are going to be hotels and families are going to be coming from all over the region to come to the Rabbit Hole. I want to remind the City Council that we just had a consulting firm do a feasibility study on our project, and they tripled our projections to 225,000 visitors in our first year. So I would consider thinking harder about like what you're talking about right now on 14th Ave. 14th Ave is a sleepy place right now. I would say I go down 14th Ave every day right now, and there are trucks, but it's not as heavy as some other avenues, so I'm not overly concerned. I'm happy with Sharrows. I think reality will insist on what it needs when the time comes, so I'm not here to cause a problem, but I do support bikeways because I think they make people safer. If we're talking 20 years into the future in this plan, we're talking also about the streetcar coming over Burlington Bridge, which is going to bring people who walk down 14th Ave to go to the Rabbit Hole or take their bike and bike down it. So I think there's a lot more permeability now between downtown and North Kansas City, and we see it. The idea isn't to send people to the River Markets. The idea is to bring people from the River Market into North Kansas City. Also, we're putting $13 million into that project, and it's going to incur other development around the Rabbit Hole. So again, just try to expand your mind a little bit about the future of what's coming. It's all good. It's all family. It's going to be awesome, and we're going to be serving schools all around the metro. We're going to be bringing a national profile to the city of North Kansas City, and so all those things are good. And again, I'm not overly concerned about the coexistence of trucks and industrial. I mean, the reason we came to North Kansas City was because of its industrial character. We like that, and we're not interested in causing a problem with that. But again, there will be other development that happens around the Rabbit Hole, and so it's going to become less and less sleepy and more interesting. And I think people who do come down from Des Moines, Omaha, and other places to visit, as well as conferences from around the nation, library conferences and other things, are going to stay at the Rick Warner One North, and they're going to love it if they can walk down the Rabbit Hole, and under the bridge. So again, I don't think it's like super urgent, but I do think you are talking about a future plan, and you should understand what's coming in terms of attendance and population. Again, I appreciate all that you do and all the forward thinking that's going on in this city in all the areas. So anyway, thanks.
Well,
So now maybe I think we're hearing consensus for maintaining 14th Avenue in the draft network map with shared lane marking Sharrows. Is that?
Yeah, for now.
Okay, well, that's important to us.
Reevaluate.
That way we can then incorporate that into the draft plan and continue, so,
I'd like to go on record, I just removed 14th Avenue.
okay. But I think we get the consensus of most of the council tonight, so,
If you'd had a vote, you'd know.
well, sure, sir. I mean, we don't usually take binding votes, but if you'd like to show us by vote of chair, by raising hands or something, that'd be fine. Would you like to do that, sir? Would you like to, have a show of hands for maintaining 14th Avenue in the draft network map with Sharrows or removing it altogether? That's what I think I'm hearing from Councilmember Stefan.
Okay, well, want to remove it altogether? Do it with Sharrows?
Okay, so I think we have the consensus that we need, and thank you. Did you need anything else, Sarah, on this item? Okay. Thank you. And with that, we can move on to the second item on the work session agenda, if you're ready. And that is short-term Armour Road complete street adjustments. Sarah?
Council directed us to look at adjustments to the Armor Road Complete Street design in two locations. One was immediately in front of the mop bucket. The owners of the business here had some concerns about loading space for truck deliveries. Before these improvements were made, trucks had parked in the outside travel lane to make deliveries. And so several staff members spoke to the owners of the mop bucket. We proposed adjusting the two on-street parking spaces that are immediately west of the mop bucket in front of Richards Park to a loading zone to accommodate truck deliveries. This would be pretty close to what they were doing prior to construction. To do this, what's before you shows truck movement model showing the mop buckets property and the two parking spaces that we could convert to a loading area with a WB-40 semi-truck drawn in there and modeled, their movement in there modeled. To do this, we would need to move the delineators that are immediately in front of the mop bucket between their two driveways. And we would propose placing them along the outside of the buffer area next to the bike lane, just so that there's a visual cue for drivers of how far over they need to stop to avoid impeding the bike lane. We've spoken with the mop bucket owners. They thought this seemed like a good compromise, an adjustment that would be useful for them, be close to what they were doing before. We have removed the delineators in front of that property already so that they could, direct drivers to go ahead and pull in there without running the delineators over. With your direction, we would then move those adjacent to the bike lane to provide that visual barrier.
Does that sound okay?
Great.
We believe that then that would address all of their concerns as they had expressed them to staff.
Fred, you have
So are we going to go with which option?
This is the first discussion point.
We're not on the post office yet. We were on the mop bucket. We really only kind of presented you with the one option, but we think it's a good workable option that they've indicated that they also think would work. So if that's okay, we'll just proceed that way with the mop bucket, and then we can turn to the post office here in a moment.
Okay, just by coincidence, we have somebody from the mop bucket here.
Could you come up to the mic?
Where are you talking about putting the delineators at, though?
We would put the delineators on the, immediately adjacent to the bike lane on the buffer line. It would be closer to the bike lane rather than to the loading zone, so that a truck could potentially.
Drive up that bike lane in a car.
If you drove up the bike lane at that point, you would be stopped by the bump out island. So we would put the delineators immediately adjacent to the bike lane so that trucks knew how far over to pull without pulling into the bike lane.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, as long as they don't, block the turn path into the driveway, because people right now,
No,
even with the white lines, have a problem
We would not
turning
put them
in,
front of
so,
the driveway.
yeah.
To clarify, on this picture, the pink box, it would be on the top side of the pink box where those delineators
Yes.
sit, blocking no turns, just marking where the.
Right, and if it can go any further past where that truck would be, so it still has that big white space of open space, does that make sense?
Will the white lines be taken out too?
We would probably take out the little crosshatch marking that divide the two parking spaces, because it would not be parking anymore. We'd mark it, and we would put up new signage to mark it as a loading zone rather than parking.
As long as the delineators didn't come all the way to the end of the white is all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
You
All the
want it to
way
be as far away from the truck as possible. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, so if you're, if the back end of that truck, if it only went to the back end of where that red box is, that would be fine, because if you get them closer towards the end where there's no red box on the right-hand side, that blocks turning in and out of the driveway.
We anticipated only putting them adjacent to where the existing parking spaces are, so not even as far as.
Okay,
that red
that would be great. So, thanks for the
great.
clarification.
So if there are no other questions about that part, we can then turn to the post office, which was the other short-term issue that you'd identify us for for us. Sarah?
So I might start by saying, when we wrote this memo and put it in your packet, we had not had an opportunity to sit down with the postmaster, but Eric and I were able to do that yesterday. We met with Eddie Morgan, who's the main postmaster for the entire Kansas City metro area, to make sure that we knew what their concerns were. He indicated to us that they had also heard a lot of complaints about the parking, but they did not have any concerns about access in and out of their yard. They have some concerns about site distances, but they feel that they're able to deal with that moving forward. So their main concern was also with the parking. So what we have shown in your packet with the three options, one is, to start, option A shows the existing improvements in front of the post office. So we have the 4 parallel parking spaces, with the bike lane goes straight through here, and so it's a pretty wide area with the 3.5-foot buffer. Option B would be to, because we have a little bit of extra space there because of the curb inset, would shift everything back closer to the curb. So the bike lane narrows to 5 feet with a 4.5-foot buffer. This means that the 4 parallel parking spaces shift 3.5 feet back from the travel lane to provide additional buffer space for people who are entering and exiting their cars. So that is option B. Option C turns the parking to angled parking with a similar angle that we have for our angled parking in downtown. The bike lane has 5 feet of space. The buffer area disappears and is used for the angled parking here. You don't need that buffer there because people aren't opening their doors into it. We're then able to get, the memo says 6, but it's actually 7 parking spaces here, 4 on one side of the crosswalk and 3 on the other side of the crosswalk. And we have 5 feet here. One of the things we would need to do if you chose option C would be to add curb stops at the end of these parking spaces so that cars could not pull forward too far into the bike lane. With the curb stops, though, we believe that we could maintain about 8 feet total of clear space for Public Works to get into that area to do snow removal, or Pat tells me they don't do leaf pickup in this area, but if they were needing to do any street cleaning, we would have about 8 feet of clear distance between the curb stops and the curb there, which should provide them sufficient space to do that. And this 7 parking spaces is about the capacity that we had against the curb with parallel parking. So these are the 3 options that we have for you to consider.
Two quick things. Any ADA spaces in these diagrams?
We have not marked any in this diagram. We could designate one of these angled spaces as an accessible parking space because we have, space on either side of the crosswalk. There's space there for sight distance. So that would be possible.
Second question, is there any sort of difference in traffic stopping or starting when people park in angled versus parallel?
Like for traffic flow?
Yeah.
Just in terms of, what you have out there today, the angle stalls here would be what essentially you have downtown. So, as you know, pulling into it is very quick and easy, backing out a little more difficult, whereas parallel parking takes a little more time to pull into it if there is a car behind. But if there's 2 free spaces, you can pull in really quickly and easily and pull out really quickly and easily. But if there's a lot of cars parked, it's sometimes difficult for people to pull into it, but usually exiting is a little easier. So it's kind of one and the same, just at different times.
The only tricky part with the angle is downtown, you've got stoplights bounding both blocks, so you can catch a break to pull out when cars stop and you can back out. With this, if cars are consistently flowing, finding that potential to back out could be tricky, but this accommodating 7 and having ADA space seems like a good answer.
Is this something the post office could live with?
Yes, we did ask Mr. Morgan for his preference between the 3. He liked option C the best because it has more capacity for parked cars.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Mr. Smith to a point, but there is a light at Lynn and Iron. So it's basically the same as downtown. You only have a couple lights there too. I mean, I agree that there'd be times when, just like downtown, it's gonna be hard to back out. You know, I always park on the side street because I don't do it. But I think it's a doable thing. And if the post office likes it, it's their business that we're affecting. I kinda like this one.
Rita?
I agree with option C also. I like the 7 spaces and the opportunity for the ADA. I don't really think it's going to slow down traffic any more than if people actually parallel park there, which they're not doing very much right now anyway, because it's not very easy to use. In addition to that, because there had been, it continues to be controversy in regard to Armour Road, I think this is a compromise that people who are opposed to Armour Road would see that we've actually paid attention to the mop bucket, and the mop bucket, you know, is an agreement what we've done. The postmaster apparently is in agreement with what we've done. This looks a lot more like it was prior to, so if you have opposition, I think that that might go a long way for maybe releasing a little bit of that tension. I think option C makes a great deal of sense. I go option C.
I get it. Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with option C as well. My only concern is people pulling through. And so you think putting what do you describe? Like
We would have to put curb stops
Yeah.
out as part of this.
and that would be sufficient enough to actually prevent people from pulling too far into that. You get a little
Well,
bumper
I mean,
overhang, but
You occasionally see the news article about a car that's gunded and driven into a building, so I can't guarantee that.
that is true. I guess we got to
In
build a big
general,
wall there.
for most law-abiding drivers, yes.
Okay, I'm good with this.
We have no wood up there.
Some of us are never going to be happy, but I guess we're going to have to live with it.
Well, if again, I think we're hearing consensus, so we will work to implement this particular solution, and we'll report to you as we get there, but we'll work on that immediately.
Great.
That concludes the items we have.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to say I appreciate whatever it was exactly. We done something to that drive-through because I can get in there now without hitting one of those white things. Did you do anything there? Or is it just my imagination?
Got better? Got better at
Maybe I got better driving. I don't know.
Public Works might have taken one of those down, or it might have been hit and knocked down. We haven't made any major changes out there with respect to the.
I might have known.
Natural
Maybe it
selection
is.
worked on the delineator, yeah.
Maybe that took care of it, you know? I seen some got run over down on our.
Yeah, we did see what you were talking about. It was kind of a hard ride in, so
Yeah,
if
but
it's working
I found
better
it
now,
easier
great.
the other day, so like I said, maybe one of them got knocked down.
Leave it alone the way it is.
Real quick, thank you to staff and engineer to take the time to draw this up so quickly, and thanks to all the business community that came out to attend a work session where you didn't even know you were going to get to talk. So thank you for being here and showing that this matters to you. So, appreciate you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.